Hello everyone, and today we'll be reading Chapter 2 of Economics for today, 11th edition. Production Possibilities, Opportunity Costs, and Economic Growth. Chapter Objectives. 1. Explain the relationship between opportunity costs and scarcity. 2. Describe how the production possibility curves models aggregate production. 3. Use the production possibilities curve to analyze opportunity costs and production decisions. 4. Use the production possibilities curve to analyze economic growth. In Chapter 1, we learned how every nation must answer 3 fundamental economic questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. In this chapter, we'll develop one of the most fundamental economic models, the production possibilities model. This model will help us understand the choices that must be made because of scarcity means answering these questions. 2-1 Opportunity Cost. Because of scarcity, the 3 basic questions can't be answered without sacrifice or cost. But what does this term really mean? The common response would be to say that the purchase price is the cost. A movie ticket costs $10, or a shirt costs $50. Applying the economic way of thinking, however, cost is defined differently. A well-known phrase by a Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman says, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." This expression captures the links among concepts of scarcity, choice, and cost. Because of scarcity, people must make choices, and each choice incurs a cost or sacrifice. Once an option is chosen, another option is given up. The money you spend on a movie ticket can't be used to buy a pizza. The time you spend studying can't also be spent working out. A business may purchase a new textile machine to manufacture towels, but the same money can't be used to buy a new recreation facility for employees. These examples illustrate that the true cost of these decisions is what's sacrificed when we make the choice, or the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the next best alternative that was sacrificed when making a choice. The highest value good or use of time given up for the chosen good or use of time, therefore, measures the opportunity cost. We omit the word opportunity before the word cost, but the concept remains the same. Exhibit 1 illustrates the causation chain that links scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. Examples are endless, but let's consider a few. Suppose your economics professor decides to become a rock star in the Rolling Dough band. Now all your professor's working hours are devoted to creating hit music, and the opportunity cost is the educational services no longer provided. Opportunity cost also applies to national economic decisions. Suppose the federal government decides to spend tax revenues on a space station. The opportunity cost depends on the next best program not funded. Assume roads and bridges are the highest value products not built as a result of the decision to construct the space station. Then the opportunity cost of decision to devote resources to the space station is foregone roads and bridges, and not the money actually spent to build the space station. To personalize the relationship between time and opportunity cost, ask yourself what you would be doing if you were not reading this text. Your answer might be watching television, sleeping, or working out in the gym. If you're sleeping, if sleeping is your next best choice, then the opportunity of cost of reading this text is the sleep you sacrifice. Have you ever wondered why a few rock stars and movie stars attend college? The concept of opportunity cost can help us understand the answer to this question. Rock stars and movie stars would need to forfeit a large amount of income to spend attending college. That is, the opportunity cost of doing so would be so high. Take note. Because of scarcity, society must make choices. The opportunity cost is the next best alternative that must be given up when you're making any choice. Exhibit 1. The links between scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. Scarcity means that no society has enough resources to produce all goods and services necessary to satisfy all human wants. As a result, society is always confronted with the problem of making choices. This means that each decision has a sacrifice in terms of an alternate choice that has to be foregone, which is the opportunity cost of that decision. Am I on track? 1. Nikki has exams in calculus, English, and biology this week. She studies in 1-hour blocks of time. Nikki has decided that studying biology is the most important, calculus second most important, and English least important. When Nikki decides to spend her first hour studying on biology, the opportunity cost of this is A, $10, B, not studying calculus, C, not studying English, D, not studying calculus and not studying English. 2-2. Marginal analysis. At the heart of all rational decision-making is marginal analysis. Marginal analysis examines the effects of incremental additions to or subtractions from a current situation. This is a very valuable tool in the economic way of thinking toolkit because it considers the marginal effects of change. The rational decision maker decides on an option only if the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. For example, you must decide how you want to use your scarce time. Should you devote an extra hour reading this text, going to the gym, watching television, or sleeping? Which of your many options do you choose? The answer depends on marginal analysis. If you decide the benefit of a higher grade in economics exceeds the opportunity cost of, say, sleep, then you allocate an extra hour to studying economics. Businesses also use marginal analysis. Hotels, for example, rent space to student groups for dances and other events. Assume you're a hotel manager and a student group offers to pay $400 to use your ballroom for a party. To decide whether to accept the offer requires marginal analysis. The marginal benefit of renting otherwise vacant space is $400, and the marginal cost is $300 for extra electricity and cleaning services. Since the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost, the manager sensibly accepts the offer. Marginal analysis is also an important concept when it comes to government considerations, changes in various programs. For example, as demonstrated in the next section, an increase in production of military goods will result in the opportunity cost of fewer consumer goods being produced, and that trade-off will need to be considered. 2-3. The Reduction Possibilities Model. The economic problem of scarcity means that the society's capacity to produce combinations of goods is constrained by its limited resources and existing technology. This condition can be represented in a model called the Production Possibilities Curve, PPC, which we will explore now. 2-3A. Assumptions. It's important when building any model to be clear about the assumptions you are making. 3 basic assumptions underlie the Production Possibilities Curve model we are about to develop. 1. Fixed resources. The quantities and qualities of all resources remain unchanged during this period of time, but the economy can shift any resource from the production of one output to the production of another output. For example, an economy might shift workers from producing consumers' goods such as iPhones, pizza, clothing, etc., to producing capital goods such as machinery, office buildings, roads, etc. Although the number of workers remains unchanged, this transfer of labor will produce fewer consumer goods and more capital goods. 2. Fully employed resources. The economy operates with all its factors of production fully employed and producing the greatest output possible without waste or mismanagement. 3. Fixed technology. Holding the level of existing technology fixed creates limits or constraints on the amounts and types of goods any economy can produce. Technology is the body of knowledge applied to how goods are produced. 2-3B. The Production Possibilities Curve. We are now ready to create the Production Possibilities Curve, which shows the maximum combinations of 2 outputs that an economy can produce in a given period of time with its available resources and technology. Exhibit 2 shows a hypothetical economy that has the capacity to manufacture any combination of utility goods, guns, and consumers' goods better per year along its Production Possibilities Curve, PVC, including points A, B, C, and D. For example, if this economy uses all of its resources to make utility goods, and therefore none of its resources to producing consumer goods, it will produce a maximum of 160 billion units of military goods and 0 units of consumer goods, combination A. Another possibility is that for the economy to use all of its resources produce a maximum of 100 billion units of consumer goods and 0 units of military goods, point B. Between the extremes of point A and D lie other production possibilities where the economy devotes some of its resources to military goods and whatever left to consumer goods. For example, combination B represents a situation where the economy is producing 140 billion units of military goods and 40 billion units of consumer goods, while point C shows the economy producing 80 billion units of military goods and 80 billion units of consumer goods. Each point along the production possibilities curve represents the maximum production possible with existing resources and technology. 2-3C, efficiency and the production possibilities curve. Recall that economists use the term efficiency to describe a situation where society is doing the best it can with its existing resources. Production efficiency occurs when the society produces the most it can with the existing resources and technology. A situation where more of one good can be produced by producing less of another good. Let's see how this relates to our production possibilities curve. As we have seen, all points along the PBC are maximum output levels with the given resources and technology. As such, all points on the production possibilities curve are productively efficient points. A movement between any two productively efficient points on the curve means that no more than one good is produced, only producing less of another good. Consider the movement from point A to point B in Exhibit 2. At point A, the economy is devoting all of its resources to the production of military goods. As such, it can produce 160 billion units of military goods and no consumer goods. Moving to point B requires relocating some resources away from the production of military goods and towards the production of consumer goods. This will result in fewer military goods being produced. Exhibit 2. The production possibilities curve of military goods and consumer goods. All points along the production possibilities curve, PBC, productively efficiently represent the maximum possible combinations of the production of military goods and consumer goods. One possibility, point A, will be to produce 160 billion units of military goods and 0 units of consumer goods per year. At the other extreme, point D, the economy uses all of its resources to produce 100 billion units of consumer goods and 0 units of military goods per year. Points B and C are obtained by using some resources to produce each of two outputs. If the economy fails to utilize its resources fully and has some unemployment, the result is an inefficient combination given by the point inside the PBC, like point U. Any point outside the PBC, like point C, lies beyond the economy's present production capabilities and is currently unattainable. What happens if the economy does not use all of its resources to the maximum productive capability? For example, some workers may not find work, or plants and equipment may be idle for any number of reasons. The result is our hypothetical economy fails to reach any of the combinations along the PBC. In Exhibit 2, point U illustrates an insignificant output level indicating our economy is operating without all of its resources fully and efficiently employed. At point U, our model economy is producing 80 billion units of military goods and 40 billion units of consumer goods per year. Such an economy is underproducing because it could satisfy more of society's wants if it were producing at some point along the PBC. Even if the economy fully and efficiently employs all of its resources, it's impossible to reduce certain output qualities. At any point outside the production possibilities curve, it is currently unattainable because it's beyond the economy's present production capabilities. Point C, for example, represents an unattainable output of 140 billion units of military goods and 80 billion units of consumer goods. The economy simply cannot reach this point with its existing resources and technology. Take note, scarcity limits an economy to points on or below its production possibilities curve. How does society choose which point to actually produce among all the productively efficient points along the PBC? In our discussion of marginal analysis, we said that the rational decision maker decides an option only if the marginal benefit, which is determined by consumer preferences, exceeds the marginal cost, opportunity cost. In our example, this means society will continue to allocate resources to production of, say, consumer goods as long as the marginal benefits of doing so is greater than the marginal cost. And society will stop allocating more resources to the production of consumer goods when the marginal benefit of doing so is equal to the marginal cost. Allocative efficiency occurs when society allocates or channels its limited resources into the production of these products that are most desired by society. In Exhibit 2, only one point of the PBC will be allocatively efficient, the one point where the marginal benefit of each unit of consumer goods produced, which will depend on preferences of members of society, is equal to its marginal cost. Take note. Productive efficiency is illustrated by all points along the production possibilities curve, where more than one good can be produced by producing less of another good. Only one point on the PBC will be allocatively efficient, reflecting the one combination of products desired by society. Am I on track? 2. All points on the PBC, A, are predictably inefficient, B, represent a situation where more than one good can be produced by using less of the other good, C, are allocatively efficient, D, all of the above. 2-4. Opportunity costs and the production possibilities curve. We now know that every point on the PBC is productively efficient, meaning the only way to produce more of one good is to produce less of another. Let's look more carefully at what happens when an economy produces more of one good. 2-4A. Identifying opportunity costs using the PBC model. Exhibit 3 presents a production possibilities curve for the hypothetical economy that must choose between producing tanks and producing sailboats. Consider point A, which represents the situation where the economy is devoting all of its resources to the production of tanks and can produce 80,000 tanks. As we've seen, the only way to increase the production of sailboats, given the existing resources and technology, is to decrease the production of tanks. We can use this idea to calculate the opportunity cost of sailboat production. Let's examine the movement of point A to point B along the PBC. To increase the production of sailboats by 20,000 units requires decreasing the production of tanks by 80,000 to 70,000. This 10,000 unit reduction in the production of tanks then is the opportunity cost of reducing 20,000 sailboats. It represents what the economy must give up in order to produce those sailboats. 2-4B, the law of increasing opportunity cost. What happens in Exhibit 3 if we continue to expand the production of sailboats in 20,000 unit increments? If we move from producing at combination B to producing at combination C, the next 20,000 sailboats produced will require a reduction in tank production from 70,000 to 50,000. The opportunity cost then of producing these additional 20,000 sailboats is 20,000 tanks. What if we continue to produce more sailboats? As we move from C to D, the opportunity cost increases. Now from 50,000 tanks, as the reduction of the last 20,000 sailboats requires tank production fall from 50,000 to 1 until 0. The law of increasing opportunity cost states that the opportunity cost increasing as the production of one output expands. Holding the stock of resources and technology constant, ceteris paribus, the law of increasing opportunity costs therefore causes the production possibilities curve to display a bowed-out shape. Why must our hypothetical economies sacrifice larger and larger quantities of tank production in order to produce each additional 20,000 sailboats? The reason is that resources like workers are not equally suited to the production of both goods. For example, expanding the output of sailboats requires shifting the use of resources like workers from tank production to sailboat production. A hypothetical economy produces no sailboats point A and then decides to produce them additionally. The least skilled tank workers will be transferred to making sailboats. As such, only 10,000 tanks are sacrificed to move to point B. However, as the economy moves from point B to point C, more highly skilled tank workers become sailboat workers, and the opportunity cost raises to 20,000 tanks. Finally, if the economy decides to move from the point C to D, the remaining tank workers who are superb tank makers but poor sailboat makers must adapt to the techniques of sailboat production, and the opportunity cost increases even more to 50,000 tanks. It should be noted that the production possibility curves model could assume that the resources are equally suited to the production of all goods and opportunity cost remains the same. In this case, the production possibility curve would be a straight line, which the model employed in the chapter on international trade and finance. Take note, because resources are not equally suited to the production of all goods, it's common to experience increasing opportunity costs and a bound-up production possibilities curve. Exhibit 3. The law of increasing opportunity cost. Point A through D on production possibility curve (PVC) below represents a hypothetical economy increasing production of sailboats in equal increments of 20 sailboats per year. If the economy moves from point A to point B, the opportunity cost of 20,000 sailboats is a reduction of tank output of 10,000 per year. This opportunity cost of 20,000 tanks, if the economy moves from point B to point C. Finally, the production at point D rather than C results in the opportunity cost of 50,000 tanks per year. The opportunity cost rises because workers are not equally suited to make both tanks and sailboats. 2-5. Sources of economic growth. The economy's production capability is not permanently fixed. The points on a production possibilities curve, PVC, are productively efficient, meaning society is producing the most it can with existing resources and technology. If either with the quantity or the quality of resources increase or technology advances, the economy will experience economic growth, and the PVC will shift outwards. Economic growth is the ability of an economy to produce greater levels of output represented by an outward shift of its production possibilities curve. Exhibit 4 illustrates this outward shift. At point A on PVC 1, a hypothetical full employment, productively efficient economy produces 40,000 computers, 200 million pizzas per year. If the economy experiences economic growth, and then the production possibility curve will shift outward to PVC 2. One option now will be to produce at point B and increase computer output to 70,000 per year. Another possibility would be to increase pizza output to 400 million per year. Yet another choice is to produce both at the same point between point B and point C on PVC 2. Let's explore further these sources of economic growth, which we have indicated include 1. More or better resources, land, labor, capital. 2. New technologies. 2-58. Changes in resources. One way to realize economic growth is to obtain more resources. An increase in resources, for example, more natural resources, land, a baby boom, labor, or more factories, capital, will shift the production possibilities curve outwards. Conversely, a reduction in resources, or, for example, natural disasters like fires that destroy forests, and therefore labor unavailable for construction, land, a pandemic that causes many casualties, labor, or the destruction of factories during war, capital, will cause the reduction possibilities curve to shift inward. 2-5b. Technological change. Another way to achieve economic growth is through technological advances. This will also make it possible to produce more with existing resources, shifting the production possibilities curve outwards. For example, the knowledge of how to transform a stone into a wheel vastly improved the prehistorical standard of living. One source of technological change is the creation of new technologies or invention. Computer chips, satellites, video conferencing, and 3D printing are all examples of technological advances, resulting from the use of science and engineering knowledge. Technological change also results from the innovations of entrepreneurship, introduced in the previous chapter. Innovation involves developing new productive processes, seeking profits. Entrepreneurs create new, better, or less expensive products. This requires organizing an improved mix of resources, which expands the production possibilities curve and gives us economic growth. Henry Ford, for example, changed the auto industry by pioneering the use of the assembly line for making cars. Another entrepreneur, law student Chester Carlson, began so frustrating documents that he worked on his own to develop photocopying. Throughout history, technological advances have fostered economic growth by advancing our nation's productive power. Today, computers, video conferencing, and smartphones are new technologies, but railroads, electricity, and automobiles, for example, are also new technologies in their time. Take note, Economic growth is represented by an outward shift of production possibilities curve and is caused by improvements in technology as well as better resources. Exhibit 4. An outward shift of production possibilities curve for computers and pizza. The economy begins with the capacity to reduce combinations along with the first production possibilities curve, PBC 1. Growth in the quantity or quality of resources or technological advances can shift the production possibilities curve outwards from PBC 1 to PBC 2. Points along the PBC 2 represent new production possibilities that were previously impossible. This outward shift permits the economy to produce greater quantities of output. Instead of producing combination A, the economy can produce, for example, more computers at point B or more pizzas at point C. If the economy grows and produces at point between B and C, more pizzas and computers can be produced compared to point A. Not all changes to resources or technology impact the production of all goods equally. Consider the economy represented in Exhibit 5, producing food and shelter. PBC 1 represents the maximum production of food and shelter this economy can produce with its existing resources. Now suppose all workers partake in the agriculture skills training. The existing workers now better able to produce food, but the training have no impact in their ability to produce shelter. How will this impact our production possibilities curve? PBC 2 represents the economy after workers are trained. Notice that the economy produces only food, and then after training, the maximum food production will increase from point A to point C. If this economy instead devotes all its resources to reduction of shelter, this training will have no impact on the workers' ability to produce shelter, and point B will represent the maximum shelter production both before and after the training. Exhibit 5. A shift from the PBC 1 technology advances only impact the production of one good. Not all changes to resources or technology impact the production of all goods equally. For example, if workers in an economy undergo agricultural skills training, then the maximum production of food will increase from point A on PBC 1 to point C on PBC 2, but the maximum production of shelter will remain the same on point B, and the PBC will shift from PBC 1 to PBC 2. A closer look. Applicable concept, entrepreneurship. FedEx wasn't an overnight success. Frederick W. Smith is a classic entrepreneur success story. Young Fred went to Yale University and had a good idea, secured venture capital, worked like crazy, and made a fortune. And the Smithian institution rated its ultimate accolade. It snapped up an early Federal Express jet for its collection, displaying it a time in the National Airspace Museum in Washington, D.C., not far from the Wright brothers' first airplane. Smith's saga began with a college economics term paper that spelled out the nationwide oversight parcel delivery system that would be guaranteed to absolutely positively beat the pants off of U.S. Coastal Service. People said he would pay much more if their packages arrived at the destination the next morning. To accomplish his plan, planes could converge nightly at Memphis, Tennessee, carrying packages accepted at any location throughout the nation. Smith chose the city for its central U.S. location because its airport has a little bad weather to cause landing delays. In the morning hours, all items would be loaded, sorted, and rerouted to other airports, where vans would battle the rush hour traffic to make deliveries before the noon deadline. Smith's college term paper only got a C grade. Perhaps the professor thought the idea was too risky, and lots of others certainly agreed. In 1969, after a college and tour as a Marine pilot in Vietnam, the 24-year-old Smith began pitching his personal delivery plan to mostly skeptical financiers. Nevertheless, with $40 million of his daughter's family, he persuaded a few venture capitalists to put up $80 million. At the time, this was the largest venture capital package ever assembled. In 1973, delivery service began with 33 jets connecting 25 cities, but on the first night, only 86 packages showed up. It was years before Smith looked like a genius. The company posted a $27 million loss the first year, turned a corner in 1976, and then took off, helped by the 1981 decision to add letters to its basic package delivery service. Today, Smith's basic strategy hasn't changed, but the scale of operation has exploded. FedEx is the world's largest express transportation company serving over 200 countries. Am I on track? 3. An economy can produce various combinations of food and shelter along its production possibilities curve. An increase in the number of workers in the economy from the baby boom 20 years ago will likely cause A. The PPC to shift outward, B. The PPC to shift inward, C. Society to move along the PPC producing more food and less shelter, D. Society to move to producing at a point inside the PPC. 2-5C. Present investment in capital. We now know that if an economy increases the amount of available capital, it will experience economic growth. How is that capital accumulated? When the decision for an economy involves choosing between the production of capital goods and production of consumer goods, the output combination chosen for the present period can determine the future production capacity. Exhibit 6 compares two countries producing different combinations of capital and consumer goods. Part A shows the production possibility curve for the low-investment economy of Alpha. This economy was producing combination A in 2015, which was the output of CA, of consumer goods, and an output of KA for capital goods per year. This economy is currently producing relative few capital goods and lots of consumer goods. Let's assume KA is just enough capital output to replace the capital being worn out each year, depreciation. As a result, Alpha fails to accumulate the net gain of factories and equipment required to expand its production possibilities curve outward in future years. Why wouldn't Alpha simply move up along its production curve by shifting more resources to capital goods production? The problem is that sacrificing consumer goods for capital formation causes a current fewer and lower standard of living today, which can be unpopular. Exhibit 6. Alpha's and Beta's present and future production possibility curves. In Part A, each year Alpha produces enough capital KA to replace existing capital that was worn out. Without more capital, assuming other resources remain fixed as well, Alpha is unable to grow and shift its production possibilities curve outwards. In Part B, each year Beta produces capital B, which is more than the amount required to replenish its depreciated capital. In 2021, this expanded capital provides Beta with extra production capability to shift its production possibilities curve to the right, outward. If Beta chooses point B on its curve, it has a reduction capacity to increase the amount of consumer goods from CB to CC without producing fewer capital goods. Because it now has more consumer goods, the country has increased its standard of living. A closer look. Applicable concept, economic growth. How does public capital affect a nation's curve? The discussion of low investment country Alpha versus high investment country Beta explained that sacrificing production of consumer goods for an increase in capital goods output can result in economic growth and a higher standard of living. Stated differently, there's a long-run benefit from accumulated capital that offset the short-run opportunity cost in terms of consumer goods foregone. Here, the analysis was in terms of investment in private capital such as factories, machines, and inventories. However, public or government capital can also influence the nation's production possibilities over time. For example, according to Josh Bravens at Economic Policy Institute, public investment by federal, state, and local governments builds the nation's capital stock by devoting resources to basic physical infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, rail lines, airports, and water distribution. Innovative activity, basic research, green investments, clean power sources, and weatherization, and education, both primary and advanced, as well as job training, that leads to higher productivity or higher living standards. Moreover, investments in public capital have significant positive impacts on private sector productivity, with estimate rates of return ranging from 15% to upwards of 45%. And public investment has benefits that extend beyond simply increasing overall production. It also offers benefits that are more broadly shared with all, such as safe water and cleaner air. Finally, economic growth and development is a major goal of countries throughout the world, and there are numerous factors that cause some countries to experience greater economic growth compared to other countries. Comparing alpha to beta illustrates the importance of being able to do more than just replace worn-out capital. In 2015, beta operated at point A and panel B, which is the output of CB, of consumer goods, and KB of capital goods. Assuming KB is more than enough to replenish worn-out capital, beta is a high investment economy, adding to its capital stock and creating extra production capability. This process of accumulating capital formation, is investment. Investment is accumulation of capital such as factories, machines, and inventories, used to produce goods and services. With more factories and machinery, beta's production possibilities expanded and its economy grows and prospers, while alpha's standard of living remains unchanged because the protection of consumer goods remains unchanged. As mentioned earlier, not only will capital accumulation create economic growth, but if this additional capital is also of greater quality, it's more high-tech, then the production possibilities curve will shift even further to the right, and will get even more economic growth. Take note, a nation will accumulate economic growth by devoting more resources to the production of capital goods. While this increases economic growth and provides for higher standards of living over time, it can be unpopular because it entitles an opportunity cost. It requires current sacrifice of consumer products. Key terms: opportunity cost, marginal analysis, production possibility curve, technology, law of increasing opportunity cost, economic growth, investment. Summary: opportunity cost is the best alternative foregone for a chosen option. This means no decision can be made without cost. Marginal analysis examines the impact of incremental changes from current situation and is a technique used exclusively in economics. The basic approach is to compare the additional benefits of a change with the additional costs of a change. The projection possibilities curve, PVC, illustrates an economy's capacity to produce goods, subject to the constraint of scarcity. The projections possibility curve is a graph of a maximum possibility combinations of two outputs that can be produced in a given period of time, subject to three conditions. 1. All resources are fully employed. 2. The resource base is not allowed to vary during the time period. 3. Technology, which is the body of knowledge applied to the production of goods, remains constant. All points along the PVC are productively efficient points because each point represents a maximum output possibility. Inefficient production occurs at any point inside the PVC. Only one point of the curve can be accumulated effective. This point represents a combination of products that is most desired by society. Finding the combination requires comparing the marginal benefit and marginal cost of products produced. Points outside the curve are currently unattainable. Economic growth is represented by the production possibilities curve shifting outwards as the result of an increase in the quantity and quality of resources or an advance in technology. Economic growth is desired because it increases the nation's standard of living. The law of increasing opportunity cost states that the opportunity cost increases the production of goods expands. The explanations for this law is that the suitability of resources declines sharply as the greater amounts are transferred from producing one output to producing another output. Investment means that the economy is producing and accumulating capital. Investment consists of factories, machines, and inventories capital produced in the present and that are used to shift the production possibility curve outwards in the future. The current location on the PVC will determine the future location of that PVC. Take note. Because of scarcity, society must make choices. The opportunity cost is next the best alternative that must be given up when making any choice. Scarcity limits an economy to points on or below its production possibility curve. Productive efficiency is illustrated by all points along the production possibilities curve, where more than one good can be produced by producing less of another good. Only one point on the PVC will be accumulated efficient, reflecting on the one that combination of products most desired by society. Because resources are not equally suited to the production of all goods, it's common to experience increasing opportunity costs and boiled out production possibility curves. Economic growth is represented by an upward shift of production possibilities curve and is caused by improvements in technology as well as better or more resources. A nation could accelerate economic growth by devoting more resources to production of capital goods. While this increases economic growth and provides for higher standards of life over time, it can be unpopular because it entails an opportunity cost which requires a sacrifice in consumer products. Study questions and problems. Please see Appendix A for answers to odd-numbered questions. Your instructor has access to the answers for the even-numbered questions. 1. Explain why scarcity forces individuals and society to incur opportunity costs. Give specific examples. 2. Suppose a retailer promotes its store by advertising a drawing of a free car. Is this car free because the winner pays 0 for it? 3. Explain verbally the statement, "There's no such thing as a free lunch," in relation to scarce resources. 4. Which of the following decisions has a greater opportunity cost? Why? 5. Attending college is expensive, time-consuming, and requires effort. So why do people decide to attend college? 6. The following set of hypothetical production possibilities for a nation. A. Plot the production possibilities data. What is the opportunity cost of the first 2,000 automobiles purchased? Between which points is the opportunity cost of per 1,000 automobiles highest? Between which points is the opportunity cost per 1,000 tons be highest? B. Label point F, which represents an ineffective point. Why is it ineffective? Label point G, which represents an unattainable point. Why is it unattainable? Why are these points A through E all productively efficient points? Label A point H, which represents an accumulating efficient point. Explain why this point might be accumulating efficient. C. Does this production possibility curve represent the law of increasing opportunity costs? Explain. D. What assumptions could be changed to shift the production possibility curve? 7. The table shows the production possibility for pies and flower boxes. Fill the opportunity cost pies forgotten for reducing the first through fifth flower box. 8. What does production possibility curve have a bowed out shape? Interpret phrases, "There is no such thing as a free lunch," and "free lunch is possible" in terms of production possibility curve. Suppose, unfortunately, your mathematics and economics professors have decided to give tests 2 days from now, and you can spend a total of 12 hours studying for both exams. After some thought, you conclude that dividing your study time equally between each subject will give you expected grade of C in each course. For each additional 3 hours of study time, for one of the subjects, your grade will increase 1 letter grade for the subject. Your grade will fall 1 letter subject for the other one. A. Construct a table for the production possibilities and the corresponding number of hours in the study. B. Plot these production possibility data in the graph. C. Does this production possibility curve reflect the law of increasing opportunity cost? Explain. 11. Draw a production possibility curve for the hypothetical economy producing a capital goods and consumer goods. Suppose a major technological breakthrough occurs in the capital goods industry, and the new technology is widely adopted only in this industry. Draw the new production possibility curve. Now assume that the technological advance occurs in the consumer goods production, not the capital goods production. Draw the new production possibility curve. 12. The present choice between investing in capital goods and producing consumer goods now affects the ability of an economy to produce in the future. Explain. With the disappearance of the former Soviet Union and the end of Cold War, the United States became the world's only superpower and no longer engaged in intense competition to build up its military. As a result, in the 1990s, Congress and the White House had the opportunity to reduce the military share of the budget and spend more funds for the non-defense goods. This situation was referred as the peace dividend. Now consider that the need for combat terrorism reverts resources back to military and security output. Does the peace dividend or reversal to more military spending represent a possible shift of the production possibility curve or move it along with them? 14. Explain why allocating efficient point on the PVC as productively efficient. but a particularly efficient point on the PVC may or may not be allocatingly efficient. Am I on track? Answers: 1, B, 2, B, 3A. Sample quiz. Please see Appendix B for answers to the sample quiz questions. Because of scarcity, people make choices, and each choice incurs a cost. The blank cost is the best alternative that was sacrificed when making a choice. A, financial. B, money. C, optional. D, opportunity. 2. Suppose that the alternative uses of an hour of your time in the evening ranked best to worst. 1. City economics. 2. Watch 2 half-hour sitcoms. 3. Play video games. 4. Jog around town. You can choose only one activity. What is the opportunity cost of studying economics for an hour given this information? A. Jogging around town. B. Watching 2 half-hour TV sitcoms. C. Playing video games. D. The sum of watching 2 hours TV sitcoms, playing pool, and doing laundry. C. Which word or phrase best completes the following sentence? Marginal analysis means evaluating blank changes from a current situation. A. Incidental. B. Infinite. C. No. D. Maximum. 4. Which of the following is an example of an organization using marginal analysis? A. A hotel manager calculating the average costs per guest for the past year. B. A farmer hoping for rain. C. A government official considering the effect of an increase in military goods production will have on the production of consumer goods. D. A business person calculating economic profits. 5. A production possibility curve shows the various combinations of 2 outputs that A. Consumers would like to consume. B. Producers would like to produce. C. An economy would produce. And D. An economy should produce. A production possibilities curve is drawn based on which of the following assumptions? A. Resources are fixed and fully employed, and technology advances are at the rate of growth of the economy overall. B. Resources will decline, but labor remains fully employed and technology is unchanged. C. Resources can vary. Most resources experience of time employment, and technology advances, particularly during wartime. D. Resources such as labor and capital will grow and are fully employed, and technology is unchanged. E. None of the answers are correct. 7. If an economy can produce various combinations of food and shelter along a production possibility curve, then if we increase the production of shelter along the PVC, which of the following is true? A. We can also increase the production of food. B. We must decrease the production of food, and this foregone production of food represents the opportunity cost of the increase in shelter. C. We cannot change the production of food. D. The concept of opportunity cost does not apply along the PVC. 8. An economy can produce various combinations of food and shelter along the production possibility curve. First, increase the production of shelter along the PVC, then continue to shift more and more production to shelter. Which of the following will most likely happen to the opportunity cost of a unit of shelter? A. Opportunity cost will increase because as more and more shelter is produced, labor and capital is highly productive at producing food and shifted to shelter production. And so more and more food is being given up to produce a unit of shelter. B. Opportunity cost is the amount of labor, but not capital, that is used to produce extra shelter. C. Opportunity cost must stay constant if we are to stay on the production possibility curve. Opportunity cost includes all options given up to produce shelter. 9. An economy can produce various combinations of food and shelter along the production possibilities curve. Suppose the technological innovation resulted in a new, higher-yielding crop that generated more bushels of grain for a given set of land, labor, and capital resources. If this innovation does not affect the productivity of shelter production, which of the following is true? The PVC will shift outwards equally along both axes of the graph. B. The PVC will rotate inward along the food axis, but not shift on the shelter axis. C. The PVC will rotate outwards along the food axis, but not shift on the shelter axis. D. The PVC will not change. 10. If the production possibility curve has capital on the vertical axis and consumer goods on the horizontal axis, which of the following is true? there's a trade-off between emphasizing the production of capital today to benefit people today versus emphasizing the production of consumer goods today that will generate benefits in the future. B. Greater emphasis on the production of capital today leads to future inward shifts in the PBC, thus decreasing the wealth of people in the future. C. Greater emphasis on the production of consumer goods today leads to greater outward shifts in the PBC, thus increasing the wealth of people in the future. D. Greater emphasis on the reduction of capital today leads to greater outward shifts in the PBC, thus increasing the wealth of the people in the future. 11. Which of the following reasons could explain why the economy would be operating inside its production possibility curve? A. Because a shrinking population has reduced the number of productive workers in the economy. B. Because technological innovations have increased the productivity of labor and capital. C. Because damage to natural resources, such as damage caused by deforestation leading to erosion of topsoil, has shrunk land resource. D. Because unemployment or underemployment of labor, perhaps due to discrimination against employing workers of a certain race or gender. 12. Combinations of goods outside the production possibility curve have which of the following characteristics? A. They are attainable today only if we employ all unemployed or underemployed resources. B. They are not attainable given to the existing stock of resources and technology. C. They imply that some resources such as labor are unemployed or underemployed. D. None of the answers are correct. 13. An economy that invests in education and training for workers today will likely see what happened to the PBC. A. It'll become steeper. B. It'll become flatter. C. It'll shift outwards. D. It'll shift inwards. 14. The three different economies have made choices about production of capital goods. Which of the following is most likely to produce the greatest growth and production possibilities curve? A. Capital goods produced at the exact rate needed to replace worn-out capital. B. Greater production of capital goods than what is needed to replace worn-out capital. C. Less production of capital goods than what is needed to replace worn-out capital. D. More production of consumer goods that replace worn-out capital. 15. In the study of economics, investment means A. Accumulation of capital that is used to reduce goods and services. B. Owning stocks and bonds. C. The principle of the opportunity cost increases as the production of one input expands. D. The effects of stock prices on the reduction possibility curve. 16. Points B and C lie on PVC for economy that produces various combinations of fish and bread. Point B represents 20 loaves of bread and 100 pounds of fish, while point C represents 30 loaves of bread and 80 pounds of fish. The opportunity cost of producing 10 additional loaves of bread when the economy moves from point B to point C is A. The 20 pounds of fish that can no longer be produced. B. The 80 pounds of fish that are now being produced. C. The additional 10 loaves that are now being produced. D. The 30 loaves that are now being produced. 17. Opportunity cost. A. Represents the best alternative is sacrificed for the chosen alternative. B. Has no relationship to various alternatives that must be given up when a choice is made in the context of scarcity. C. Represents the worst alternative sacrificed for the chosen alternative. D. Represents all alternatives not chosen. 18. Which words best complete the following sentence? The rational decision maker always chooses the option for which marginal benefit blank marginal cost. A. Less than. B. Equal to. C. Unrelated to. D. More than. 19. The principle that the opportunity cost increases the production of one output expands is the A. Law of increasing opportunity costs. B. Law of demand. C. Law of supply. D. Law of increasing returns to scale. 20. The ability of an economy to produce greater levels of output per time period is called A. Positive economics. B. Negative economics. C. Economic growth. Or D. The law of specialization. And then that's